It really is about being creative, finding solutions to unexpected situations, and being able to deal with all sorts of things, because you're dealing with artists who have a certain vision in their mind, sometimes completely outrageous, but we still want to make it happen. You also need to deal with your finances, you need to deal with personnel, and you need to deal with any political factor around you, whether it be the city or the borough or the country or what have you, sometimes even a European or global context.
Art is becoming a product, audience is our customer, the artist is an entrepreneur. In our vision, there is another model possible for cultural entrepreneurship, which is called creative producing. Creative producing in our vision is a triangle between the producer, his own artistic vision, the co-creation with artists and creative teams, and the community. A model based on artistic, cultural, social and economic criteria. The community is not only the audience, but is the total social environment. Audience are seen as co-owners of the work, involved and engaged.
We have a relatively small audience base, but we have most of our shows sell out, and it's not just because they have 14 seats. We have shows that have 75. Most of the geographic community do not come. They're curious, they love that we exist, but they don't come in the doors. I'm okay with that, because maybe they go to the Met, maybe they go to the movies, maybe they go to that community theater, they go to see their children dance in ballet. But we make sure that they understand our importance by being involved in their theater. And I'm going to fight for the artists, but I'm also going to fight for the geographic community. So there at the park, we got JetBlue to give it, and Warner Brothers Studios to give us money to replace these trees, because we said, you know, yes, the neighborhood's evolving, but this is the only old park here, and we want to bring old and new together. So we're constantly involved. That's their theater. They may not come into my theater, but their theater is that park where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those children play. So those parents see me fighting for them.
To invent this concept of the creative producer and connect it not only in the Netherlands, but also to our international fellow travelers in the arts, in order to maybe be ready for the years to come. Art itself is challenged. Performance art, performing arts are in competition with other media, and even the relevance is challenged. The high art is opposed by low arts. Do we reach and convince audiences to really make them support, because it's their tax money that funds all of this beautiful institutes and this relevant art in this jungle of other information and opportunities. Marcus Faustini from Brazil. Theater is the arena of artists who mediate between worlds, to understand the world. A performative space plus digital where people are presented instead of represented. Tool for participatory democracy.
Comunitário aprender processo de produção e em tempos onde a gente vai precisar de uma democracia participativa. No Brasil, principalmente o ator que vem de periferia, o artista que vem de periferia, ele já teve que nascer produtor, porque ele tinha que inventar o seu lugar. Então acho que nós temos aí muitas estratégias de produção que foram sendo inventadas. A figura do produtor é decisiva para a invenção estética de determinado tempo.
So the agency takes its inspiration from a project born in the favelas in Rio de Janeiro. It's a project called Agência Redes para a Juventude, and it means networks for the youth. To summarise, the agency uses a devising theatre process to support young people who've lived the majority of their lives in poverty to set up their own social enterprises in the area in which they live. Our mission is to invent the future of theatre, and we're known as one of the most influential and experimental theatres in the UK. We're based in an old town hall, and we try to keep the spirit of the town hall alive, so that civic feeling in the building, we try and recreate that. So if you come to the building on any given evening, there might be a huge large-scale dance piece happening in the Grand Hall for an audience of 500. There might be a tiny little one-on-one storytelling piece happening in the attic. There'll be scratch performances where artists are testing out embryonic ideas and getting feedback from audience members.
Kampnagel is the biggest venue in Germany for international performing arts. It's located in an old crane factory. It's very big. There is 6 stages. It's a lot of rehearsal rooms, sound studio, cinema, restaurant, garden. So it's a huge issue to deal really with an experimental new program, and not only for one big festival, but also during a whole season.
So we have this small building. We have 5,000 square feet. We are a temporary space. We're renting. We had a 15-year lease, but we're sitting on $5 million US dollars to purchase and renovate a space, and that's public dollars.
I'm Simon Sharkey. I'm Associate Director at National Theatre of Scotland, and it was the first national theatre in Scotland and the first national theatre without any walls. We call ourselves a theatre without walls, and that means that we don't have a building. We only have administration offices to support whatever happens in whatever spaces we find where we can bring artists and audiences together. Of course, not having any walls means that we can break all the rules and begin again all the time, going for very long. But we've, in 8 short years, produced over 180 shows and played to an audience of over 1 million all over the world. But in 2006, we launched the National Theatre of Scotland with a project that we called Home. We went to 10 different communities in Scotland, and we placed a bunch of professional artists, designers, directors, choreographers, sound designers, digital artists in that community, working with non-professional artists. And we produced 10 pieces of theatre that all launched on the same night and ran for a week. It was impossible to see all of them. You couldn't get round the country, and that was quite deliberate because we wanted it to be very local and national in its sense. So
I have to admit that I was a creative producer, even though I ignored that I was one. So for me, it's also a very good occasion to think through what I was doing and how it went along the creativity criteria that I was mentioning. So we developed this company from scratch, from circles of friends. Árpád was a student at the Theatre Academy of Budapest. He studied theatre director, and he invited me to develop or to set up a company. We managed to create, as you mentioned also, create different kind of communities abroad and in Hungary as well, and we could find what I would call today circle of stakeholders on different levels, from politicians to partners, and of course to audiences and followers. We had a very flexible structure, and flexibility is a key term. We have never had our own premises, which helped a lot, I think. So we didn't have to care about infrastructure and building, which is a heavy burden for most of the theatres. But we could make a sort of permanent company and repertory system without having a theatre. I was always telling that we've been on tour, or we've been touring continuously, even in our own city.
We have these very small venues throughout the city, especially in Istanbul. We have probably 15 to 20 different venues. These venues are from 20 people to 100, 150 people. And they mostly produce their own work. They used to, when they first started 5-7 years ago, they always did translations. So they took a very strong play, which has an issue of sex or gender, or it's something quite problematic in Turkey, and they put this on stage because it was a foreign play. So we can see that it's not a Turkish problem. We can face this, and it became so popular, and they were able to bring like young audience into the theater, and it really attracted other people as well, even like professionals. Now they are producing their own work again, but this time with local playwrights. So they really allow local playwrights to write issues about Turkey having this small set, small number of actors, they are more mobilized, so they can go and perform in the Asian part of Istanbul, or vice versa. They can come to European part or go to another city and just perform 1 day or 2 days, and then they can come back to Istanbul. And I think with these theaters, we now have at least a couple of hundreds of new actors in the last 5 years. They are mostly trained through these theaters, so they become a part of this theater.
Any connotation with community art or co-creation, participation is really quickly associated also to society-wise interesting. However, it's seen from an artistic point as less relevant.
Well, I think in the beginning, if you start like what you are doing or we are doing on certain aspects, to work with different communities, I think in the beginning it's not so important if it's really art, then it's community work, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But then you can bring together, you start, and at a certain time you bring them together, or artists think, oh, that's really interesting, I want to join, and then it can grow. But if you don't start, if you're afraid that anybody would say, she's only doing community work, I don't care. I have also journalists or people who would say it when you work with communities, but you have to start. And to get a certain level, it will take time. And I think we have to take this time if we really want to connect to other communities.
Actually, you were saying it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And Hakan, how do you deal with this?
Once I was working for a theater called Talimhane in Istanbul, and we did a community project with the youth living in the downtown Shanti area of Dolapdere, Taksim. We had a good mixture of Kurdish, Turkish and Romani kids between 11 to 16 years old, like 25 kids I think in total, and we worked with them 4 months with music, dance. They wrote their play, and it was a great experience, and I think we learned a lot because these kids, they are very poor. They go to sell water on the street, or they go to help their father to sell some jumpers, etc. But when they come there, they bring their talent. They are very talented with music. They are very talented with telling a story, and I think there was a great exchange between professionals who are teaching them acting, writing, etc., and then seeing their vision. What they want to tell.
You would like to say something?
Yeah, but for example, in Germany now we also have a discussion that was brought up by artists with a migrant background, who say because now also all the repertory theaters start to do projects outside with migrant people. We are looking for migrant people. Can anybody come around? Stuff like that. And there's a big protest against this too now. Who say, okay, now we are not the outlaws you can bring into your project to show the outlaws on your stage. So you really, if you deal with these kind of projects, you have to do it in a really, as you describe, you have to talk to people, you have to communicate, you have to bring them in and not say, okay, we are looking for the outlaws, where are you?
7 years ago, we nearly got, Battersea Arts Centre nearly got closed down because we're based in the old town hall. We've got really almost free rent of the building. And 7 years ago we didn't have any support locally. The local community, local schools, local artists, local councillors, none of them were really interested in us. We had brilliant sort of national and international relevance, but locally no one cared if we survived or went. We were very sort of insular actually, and we didn't have networks in our own local community. So we nearly got closed down, managed to turn it all around, and since then have been trying to be less insular and have built up relationships with schools, with local people, with different people working in our community, so we're more relevant. And I don't know, we think it feels better now. It feels a lot better. We feel less embarrassed about being there. It feels like the diversification of our programme and the people in the building. artistically and creatively, our programme's more interesting now as well.
Well, I would really say with Kampnagel that it would be at the moment completely impossible for the Hamburg government to say, okay, we close Kampnagel. Or if it burns down, to say, no, we don't need a venue like this.
And why is that?
Because there are too many people involved, and it's there are too many people coming, there are too many people involved, the public is very close, everybody thinks it's really important that we have an experimental international venue in Hamburg, and there's a lot of people who come often, so this is also something where you could
But this is also something which is known by, let's say, the politicians in Hamburg?
Yeah, everybody knows it. Also every taxi driver. It's very well known.
Yeah. No, but and are you part of the political network also?
Yeah. I would be always invited if they talk about something like arts. Yeah.
The de-differentiation of subsystems in society. Modernization has brought us a separate outward sphere, a separate industry, a separate world of business, a separate world of politics. And what we now are seeing is that those barriers between those fields are blurry, and they are encroaching on each other. And that's why the values of different value regimes start to encroach on the art world, for instance.
By the end of this afternoon, before 5:30 for sure, the wall over there will be absolutely covered with actions, thoughts and actions that you will have discussed, passions that you've brought to the rest of the group, and responsibility that you will take away from this room to act on those things.
I would like to talk about real multicultural art.
And I like to talk about the skill set required for creative producing.
Inspired by Marcus Faustini, I would like to ask how we can reduce social inequalities through cultural action.
I'm interested in creating a revolution.
So in this whole discussion about where the arts are related to the community, because we're now focusing mainly from your point of view and then like the public and so on, but what with the young artists? I mean, what kind of future or position are they, should they take, or whatever claim, or as they could do 20 years ago, they could really slam on the table and ask for things, as now you are just confronted with a sort of supermarket situation.
I don't think you should buy into the supermarket situation.
No,
Wait,
I agree.
Let me. And in all of our cases, I mean, we're fairly new organizations. I have to say, I quibble with the large institution. Our budget is still under $1 million, and that includes our venue. No, and I'm still paying a personal debt from having started it, because, and I bring that up because we did what you're talking about, and I'm sure your group did as well. We had no money. We were working 2 other jobs each, but we wanted to make our work, and we were a transient, self-producing group. So I say that it's important. I don't think that, but you should still demand, and you should still pound on the table. And we created all of our structure based on our experience as artists who weren't paid, who were putting the money we were making from our other jobs into producing our work and renting other spaces. So you have to still think of it that way. We created business plans based on having no money.
I was thinking about that because the National Theatre of Scotland came out of that. Because Scottish Theatre, all the people who in that senior management team that were first appointed all went through that that process and came from very small companies that they built themselves, including me. And having gone through that process, we understood, and that's what the government invested in. They could easily have made the decision to get a big building and a world-renowned director to have a 10-year term and create the classics. But what they did was they recognised, again it's back to that tenacity, not giving up, they recognised the level of connection between the artists and creative producers who'd been through that process of having no money, because a lot of the audience that we are targeting have no money to buy theatre tickets for large theatres as well. So I would say yes, you have to go through that process. You have to be able to make that commitment. You have to be able to understand, because there's loads of learning in that.
You know, while I was listening to all the presentations, I was writing down 3 project ideas that what would be important to be done in Hungary, and I'm trying whom to call now in Hungary, and who is the artist, because now unfortunately I don't, but I have 3 I think very good projects, and maybe they will say it's bullshit, forget it, but I'm so excited about to propose it, and I think this is the role of the creative producer. Trying to fit, as you told, the moving dots. So there's a project moving as a dot, and there's an artist somewhere, and how to make them meet.